$20 at Blinds.com. Just use the promo code Hannity. Blinds.com, promo code Hannity.
PayPal credit is subject to credit approval. Details at Blinds.com/PayPal.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. That's why 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
Try ZipRecruiter now for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
National headlines, Georgia State news and sports, and the local stories you care about. News Talk 1330 WLBB, Carrollton.
Well, good Friday morning, everybody. Welcome to the WLBB Community Voice program here on News Talk 1330 FM 106.3. It is Friday morning, and I'm your host, Colin Worthington. It is 8:30. Also this morning, we are on Facebook Live, the News Talk 1330 WLBB Facebook page. So take a peek at us there if you're at home and able to call that up. Our guests this morning, both of them representing the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and I believe at least the young lady to my left has some sort of direct connection with West Georgia, maybe a volunteer for the West Georgia area. I could be wrong. Guest number 2 could have a connection to West Georgia as well, but we'll cover that here in just a second. Sitting to my left in the red, you can see her on Facebook Live, Brooklyn Aaron. She's a community outreach volunteer for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, a University of West Georgia graduate. And sitting to my right is Tricia Hernandez, newly crowned patient and community outreach manager for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. She's been with the group for several years, just a recent title change. And welcome to have the both of them here on this morning's program. A friend of Brooklyn's suggested that we reach out to her and discuss this program, and sure enough we did, and you guys were kind enough to come out this morning, and we do appreciate it. Brooklyn does have and I could be wrong, I'm thinking Brooklyn does have a closer connection to why she's volunteering for the company. And if you don't mind, Brooklyn, introduce yourself a little bit. I guess, starting with the University of West Georgia graduate, where are you from initially before that?
I'm actually from the Athens area, but I came out here for undergrad. Initially was not planning to, but my twin sister came out here. We tried to go to college apart for about a year. It did not go so well for us. So to the University of West Georgia I came, and we've been here ever since.
So you're still living here in West Georgia?
I do. I live about 30 minutes from here.
And as far as your volunteer, do you go to Atlanta to volunteer? I'm guessing that's where the central hub is?
Yes, the central hub is in Atlanta, but I do things out here too. My primary job is actually to do stuff in the West Georgia area.
Now, Tricia, how about you? How about your time with the society?
So I have been in patient support and outreach for 5 years with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And Brooklyn came to me and said, I want to do something. And I said, I would love to have someone in West Georgia because it's an underserved area for us to make sure that the patients and caregivers and the healthcare professionals out here know what the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society is and what services and resources we can provide to them. And she stepped up and has done an amazing job of getting the word out.
And I've been doing this for a decade. I can think of maybe once where we've touched on the disease at all. So I'm glad to bring it up again. Steve Graddick, who runs these stations, he had mentioned to me yesterday, and I don't think either of you are familiar with Rhubarb Jones, radio Hall of Famer. Used to work in Atlanta for many years. Worked here locally as well. Apparently, he maybe hosted a golf tournament or something for Walk Across Georgia or something like that.
I'm not sure. I think we did have a connection with him.
We're going to dig that up in the next couple of days, and because Steve was interested in kind of keeping Rhubarb's name alive associated with that, if that was the case,
Sure.
If that was the group it was. Well, let's talk to Brooklyn first, and talk about Brooklyn is a survivor. She's dealing with this herself. Do you mind talking about I guess previous life, and then how you stumbled across that? Leukemia.
I actually have non-Hodgkins lymphoma, and I guess about 2 years ago I started getting really sick, and we didn't really know what was wrong. It was really healthy before then, never went to the doctor or anything like that, but I kept getting infections after infections, and they weren't ever clearing up. We were on IV antibiotics, and they still weren't going away, and so it took about 3 months after that before I was finally diagnosed. An infectious disease specialist is actually who diagnosed me. And we did a biopsy, and I found out not even 2 days later is when I got the phone call. And then I think it was the next day that I got a PICC line put in for treatment, and the next day I started my treatment. I mean, it was really quick. Because by the time that we found out I have an aggressive subtype, and so by the time that we found out it was already stage 3. So
what is that initial response, that reaction, yours and your family's?
Partially, it was a relief. When I was first diagnosed, we were told it was one of the most treatable types of cancer, really high survival rates, and it was an answer to what was going on, and there was a fix to it. They told me I'd have 6 cycles of chemo. That was just 1 day of chemo each cycle, so 6 days of chemo, I can manage that, and then it'd be over in a few months. But it's not exactly what happened.
Yeah, well, what did happen? How far are you into this journey?
I'm now 590 something days into this journey, almost 600 days. And I actually just got my remission last week, Friday. So it's been 1 week. But it took a lot to get there. We did the initial chemo they wanted me to do, and my cancer spread during it. And so we bumped up to a higher, more powerful regimen. I was doing 96 hours of chemo straight, and then on the 5th day I was doing even more chemo. And we were alternating every other week doing that for a while. It was insane. And then it still wasn't working, so we did a bone marrow transplant, and it still wasn't working. And I ended up getting a treatment called CAR-T that came out in 2017, at the very, very end of that. So it's a brand new treatment. LLS actually is part of who funded the research for that treatment. And it put me back a little bit, I was in partial remission. And then about 3 months later, I had cancer progression again, so we're back to the start. And I ended up in a clinical trial out in California, actually. And through a lot of things at the clinical trial, I ended up getting into remission.
Wow, that's an amazing story. To have to go to California.
We were there for a long time. We were supposed to be there for 28 days, 21 days, something like that. We ended up being there for almost 4 months.
What did you know about either disease? Up to that point, to when?
Not much. I knew leukemia better than lymphoma. I honestly didn't even know lymphoma was a cancer when I was first told what it was. Definitely didn't know it was a blood cancer, and so I learned a whole lot through this. And I just kind of had a vague idea what leukemia was, to be honest with you, and even just basic things like what chemo was. I really didn't know how many chemo drugs there were, the regimens, how different it was, how it was even really given. I just didn't know much of any of it other than cancer patients lose their hair.
And you were young and healthy, so you weren't expecting anything.
No, not at all.
Did you, I guess, being that you were young and healthy, do you think the treatment takes better being a younger person? The chemo, is that?
I was really lucky through about the first half of my chemo and had next to no side effects other than my hair loss. A little bit of nausea, but nothing too bad. They give you a lot of medications to help with that.
Well, it's a hip hairstyle now.
Yeah, crazy hair now. But the second half, once I got on that 96 hours straight, and by the time that we were done with, I literally ended up having over 100 days of chemo by the time it was said and done with. By that point, I was basically a zombie. There were days that I couldn't even get in the shower by myself. So. Was
there ever a time where you were just like, man, enough?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there was definitely times. I remember sitting in Tricia's office and being like, I don't know that I can do this anymore. I just really don't. Someone asked me yesterday, do you ever just want to die now so it'll all be over with? And I'm like, I wouldn't say it quite like that. Sure. But you get exhausted. You really do. You get tired of fighting. And we went a really long time with nothing but bad news. Yeah. And it was just emotional, crazy galore for everybody.
That's a horrible question, but it's a legitimate
feeling.
It is.
It's really legitimate especially because, the survival rate by the time that where I got was so low that even my team was telling me, just call it quits. Mm-hmm. This is just hopeless at this point. So it was hard when they were telling me to call it quits too.
Now, at that point, I understand that you were going to University of West Georgia.
I was actually going to UGA for grad school at the time.
School? Are you,
Yeah,
were you able to continue any other studies anyway, or is it?
I finished out, thankfully, right at a good time, and then I planned on going into a PhD program, but obviously that did not happen. Very bad timing for that. So.
Is that still a potential to get your PhD?
Hopefully, we'll see. I don't know. It's weird. We didn't expect to get a remission, so we don't really know what a lot's going to look like now. It's only been a week, okay?
Well, you just learned a week ago about your remission, but you did get involved with Leukemia Lymphoma Society prior to knowing that. How did you get involved?
I think the first thing I did was the Georgia Blood Cancer Conference last year. I am the type of person who I wanted to know absolutely everything there was to know about my cancer and the treatments and the developing research. I spent most of my infusion time in the medical library. And so they do a conference once a year in Atlanta. This year it's going to be on September 7th. And basically they have oncologists and social workers and research. It's very qualified people, the area, come in and talk to you about your specific diseases, all types of blood cancers, specific treatments and new upcoming therapies, all kinds of stuff like that. And so, of course, when we found out about it, I don't even know how we found out about it. Maybe a Google search for things? I don't know. And so we went, and it was so great. I mean, it was probably one of the best things that we've done. And then we got involved after that.
As far as making friends who are maybe dealing with the same kind of thing, is that part of the process? Or are you able to make any friends? I mean, is everybody just really kind of...
It's hard to make friends when you're going through it just because everyone's so tired and they're going through their own stuff. But at the same time, I've definitely met some really awesome people and have made a lot of friends through this. I have one friend who was like a friend years ago, and then he ended up being diagnosed with Hodgkins lymphoma. And so a little different than my type, but we still connected through that. And so after 10 years of not talking, now we're really good friends again.
Very nice. Brooklyn Aaron, she's a community outreach volunteer with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, sitting to my left in the red shirt. Sitting to my right is Tricia Hernandez, and we're actually going to talk to her in the next segment. She's a patient and community outreach manager with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Both our guests on this morning's Community Voice program. Streaming live also on the News Talk 1330 WLBB Facebook page. So if you have questions or comments, please feel free to post those on that page during the break, and I will take a peek at them and share them with our guests when we return. Right now it is 8:42. We'll take our first break. Community Voice brought to you by Oak Mountain Academy and Tanner Health System.
At Oak Mountain Academy, our daily schedule includes convocation, prayer, and the Pledge of Allegiance. By doing so, we build a family-like community where all students grow and flourish and personal faith is encouraged. Through community service and a historical approach to biblical study, our students are taught the value of the warrior way, honesty, respect, and responsibility. Oak Mountain Academy. We are a family creating legacies. To learn more, visit oakmountain.us.
At Tanner, we're advancing health throughout West Georgia and East Alabama. Because we know that exceptional care isn't based on how many patients we serve, but how well we serve them. That's why we're focused on quality, delivering the best possible care for our patients. It's why we're expanding our clinical services and building new facilities to serve our growing community. And it's why we're looking beyond our hospitals and medical practices to develop sustainable wellness and preventive health programs in our region. What makes a hospital great has changed. It's not how many beds we have. It's how well we care for the neighbors who need them. Delivering the right care to every patient, every time, is how Tanner is advancing health with medicine beyond measure. Learn more at tanner.org or find a physician on our medical staff by calling 770-214-CARE.
8:44. Welcome back to the WLBB Community Voice Program, News Talk 1330 FM 106.3. The show sponsored by Tanner Health System and Oak Mountain Academy. I'm your host on this Friday, Colin Worthington. Our guests representing the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, a community outreach volunteer, Brooklyn Aaron, and Tricia Hernandez is patient and community outreach manager. Tricia, let's talk to you a little bit. Is that
Sure.
all right? I mean, we could have talked to Brooklyn the whole show, and I think she could have handled it.
She does a great job.
Overall, what is the mission of the society?
Our mission is to cure leukemia, lymphoma, Hodgkins disease, and myeloma, and improve the lives of patients and their families. And when you look at that mission statement, it's almost two mission statements in one. One is the cure, and that comes from one place, and that's the research. So when Brooklyn talks about clinical trials, that's the kind of research that allows us to know that these treatments are effective and put patients like Brooklyn into remission. And that's very exciting to us because that means we have new options, new treatments that are available all the time. As a matter of fact, in the last 3 years alone, we've had 50 new treatments approved by the FDA for blood cancers, and LLS has supported in part or whole most of those. And so it's very exciting news to us to see these new treatments come out. For Brooklyn, who said, I have no other options, and to go into a clinical trial, this was her last option, and it put her into remission. That's an amazing gift, and so we're thrilled to be able to support that.
Talk about 50 new treatments. Do they all go together, or are they separate treatments? You just test one at a time? Is that?
They're different treatments for different blood cancers, and some are not just for the blood cancers. Some are for the results that come from treatment to help with some issues that come up, like after a transplant that some patients may have, they may develop a graft versus host disease symptoms, and so some of the treatments are specifically geared towards that. So treatments are for the different diseases or different issues related to going through those diseases, and we're just excited to see more and more of this every single year.
Nonprofit organization.
We are a national nonprofit organization, the largest volunteer organization dedicated to blood cancers in the country. So very excited to be able to provide that. And then the latter part of our mission is really about the support piece. How do we make this journey as smooth as we can for the patients and caregivers? They've just received the hardest news that they ever will receive in their life. So how can we make sure that we provide the support resources, the education information, the financial assistance, those key pieces that make them able to walk through this journey? And we stay with them from the beginning of their journey throughout and afterward. And the afterward is the amazing things that Brooklyn is doing to give back to us as a volunteer.
That support, is the same support target the entire family and everybody else affected, or is there separate types of support for the individual primarily affected in the family?
So the financial assistance is directed for the patient, so that they can pay their medical bills, any travel costs, any urgent need, financial need costs like rent or utilities, or any general cost that's just their money is being swallowed by the cost of their treatment, and we want to be able to make that a little bit easier, that burden on them. So those kinds of treatments or those kinds of supports are directed to the patient. But things like our Patty Robinson Kaufman First Connection program is a peer support program, and so any patient, caregiver, or family member can come in and request to talk to another patient, caregiver, or family member who's been through the journey that they're going through. And that offers a tremendous amount of hope and support for someone who's just received news that they just don't know what the outcome is going to be. And they can talk to someone who's been there, done that before, and it's very hopeful to them to do that. We have education programming. We really feel like it empowers patients, caregivers, and family members to know about their disease, to know about the treatment options, to then advocate. They're the best advocates in their own care. And so we have hundreds of booklets, fact sheets, brochures on these diseases, on treatments, on treatment options, on talking with your healthcare provider about all those things. We have live local education programs. We have web-based programs. Brooklyn specifically mentioned meeting me at our blood cancer conference last year. We have a blood cancer conference coming up on September 7th at the Renaissance Waverly Atlanta Hotel. And it is free to patients, caregivers, healthcare professionals, friends, family members, and people can come out, join us, get amazing education from the leaders in research and treatment, physicians, researchers, support staff, social workers, nurses, educators on the different diseases. And it's from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And people can call me to register at 404-720-7838. And we'd love to have people come join us.
To receive the diagnosis, typically you're going to have to see a specialist. It's not going to be your typical blood test at the local hospital. I mean, you're going to be referred.
Correct. So your initial blood tests, let's say you go into the hospital because you're not feeling well, or you go to your doctor for a regular visit and your blood tests show something's a little off in your blood counts, then we want those physicians to refer to a hematologist, oncologist, who is a specialist in blood cancers, to do further testing and assessment to make the diagnosis. They'll do not only further blood testing, they'll do bone marrow biopsy, where they take a little of the cells inside the bone marrow to see if the cancer is existing there as well. They'll do scans. So there are a lot of different tests that they have available to them to make sure they're making the diagnoses.
So as far as those doctors, are they? I'm just trying to put together how a patient might get in touch with your organization. Is there, I guess, materials at that specific doctor they would have that? Do they typically turn the patient on to you guys, or do you guys seek out these doctors and say, hey, can we get in touch with this patient or these patients?
Yeah, so our goal is to get the word out. And so thank you for this opportunity to do that. But you'll see in her volunteer title, in Brooklyn's volunteer title, community outreach, and in my work title, community outreach. Our roles are to go out there and share LLS information and resources with the physicians, both in the hospitals and cancer clinics that we know are around Georgia, but also in the general practice and community health centers. We want to make sure that we're getting the word out across the board to general practice and family practice physicians and their support staff, as well as to the cancer clinics. So that's what we spend our time doing, going out in the community. They then refer their patients to us, and anyone who's listening can refer a patient to us by calling 1-800-955-4572. They'll get in touch with an information specialist, who are our master's level oncology professionals. There are disease and treatment experts, as well as national resource experts. So they'll be able to provide a lot of information up front, and then they'll refer to the local chapter, and then we'll get in touch with them as well.
Before I do head to this final break, I may be selling this short, but there's probably around 10 different forms of leukemia. Is that right?
There's 4 major categories of leukemias.
Oh. So, but then there's like kind of weird subsets under
Subsets.
some of them. So, and for non-Hodgkins, there's over 70 different recognized subtypes.
I'm selling it short. What differentiates all of those?
So it depends on which cells they're affecting in the body and what they're doing to those cells. So we have 4 major categories of leukemias, 2 major categories of lymphomas. But again, as Brooklyn just said, within those there are different genetic mutations. And you talked about, do we learn this research? Do we do these clinical trials on one drug at a time or not? And I want to bring attention to our Beat AML research program. And that is, historically, clinical trials have taken one disease and one drug at a time to look at how those drugs will affect that disease, and are they effective, and can we move them forward in the process. With Beat AML, LLS is working collaboratively with pharmaceutical companies who are developing the treatments, clinical trials, research sites at universities around the country, as well as the FDA. And we are actually looking at multiple types of AML, acute myelogenous leukemia, and multiple treatments for those types at the same time. So this is the first time we're seeing that happen, where we're looking at multiple types of disease, multiple types of treatments, and how can we find those effective treatments. And we have been working through this Beat AML master trial program now for the past couple of years, and we're looking for those new treatments. And we are seeing results from those that are being presented now. So we're very excited.
I know I got to take a break, Maddie. Let me ask just one last question about the cost for this. Obviously, you do try to help out with the cost for this for patients. What do we see as far as cost ranging for all this? Yeah.
I can tell you that I am in literally over $800,000 of medical debt.
Wow. Now, you're in debt before that. I mean, you're going to have to pay for all that.
I was in absolutely no debt before my cancer.
Yeah.
So it didn't help that I didn't have health insurance. I was 20 years old and I was healthy and couldn't really afford it. And so, yeah, that really,
is mind-boggling.
Really broke. But even people with health insurance, I mean, one day of chemo for people with blood cancers especially can cost over $20,000 easily.
Yeah, these treatments are very expensive, so we do have financial assistance program. We have 4 major financial assistance programs to help patients like Brooklyn to try to ease the burden of that cancer care cost. And we have a copay assistance program that helps pay for the treatment-related copays, the pharmacy-related copays, but also helps pay for that monthly insurance premium so that patients can maintain that insurance coverage. We have an urgent need fund that helps pay for any urgent financial need up to $500. So things like I'm going to lose my apartment or home if I don't pay my rent or mortgage. Never mind the treatment costs, because all my money is going to that. Then it'll help pay for some of those costs. And then we have a patient aid program, which every single blood cancer patient in the country is eligible for. It is a $100 one-time grant to pay for anything related to treatment. And then finally, we have the Susan Lang Pay It Forward Travel Assistance Program, which is a one-time every 6-month $500 grant to help pay for travel-related costs for treatment.
We're going to rush to this break right now and come back with about 2 minutes. One more question for Brooklyn after that break. Community Voice brought to you by Tanner Health System, News Talk 1330 FM 106.3, also sponsored by Oak Mountain Academy.
At Tanner, we're advancing health throughout West Georgia and East Alabama. Because we know that exceptional care isn't based on how many patients we serve, but how well we serve them. That's why we're focused on quality, delivering the best possible care for our patients. It's why we're expanding our clinical services and building new facilities to serve our growing community. And it's why we're looking beyond our hospitals and medical practices to develop sustainable wellness and preventive health programs in our region. What makes a hospital great has changed. It's not how many beds we have. It's how well we care for the neighbors who need them. Delivering the right care to every patient, every time, is how Tanner is advancing health with medicine beyond measure. Learn more at tanner.org or find a physician on our medical staff by calling 770-214-CARE.
Oak Mountain Academy has offered a challenging college preparatory education for over 50 years. With over 500 graduates, we have maintained a 100% college acceptance rate. Over 90% of our students earn acceptance to their first choice of college or university, and over the past 5 years, our students have earned over $10 million in scholarship offers. Our students are creating a legacy. Come, be a part of our family and create your own legacy today. To learn more, visit us at oakmountain.us.
8:58. Welcome back to the Community Voice program, brought to you by Oak Mountain Academy, Tanner Health System, News Talk 1330 FM 106.3. And if you missed any of the program, you can go back and watch it on the News Talk 1330 Facebook page for the entire program, which will conclude in about 1 minute. Did want to bring Brooklyn back in and again get her to talk about the services that she has received, the benefit being part of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society.
A lot of the resources that I received were financial resources. I got the Urgent Need Fund, which again is $500 for any pediatric and young adult cancer patients, blood cancer patients. So we got that when we went out to California. I received the travel assistance once, which paid for a plane ticket to California, so that's nice. I also received a patient aid, which is a $100 grant. So I've received money from them for sure. But also the biggest thing that I think I've gotten from them is just a sense of community. Like, I really felt my cancer community there. No other organization. I kept calling, I called the American Cancer Society, and just organization after organization trying to find somewhere that would let me volunteer because I lost my job. You can't do 5 days straight of chemo and go to work. It just doesn't work anymore. And so losing my job and then not being able to keep going to school, and I just lost a lot of sense of identity. And they said, well, if other organizations won't let you volunteer because you're currently a patient, we'll let you volunteer. So
website if somebody at home wants to help a potential patient like Brooklyn in the future.
All the information is at www.lls.org.
Ladies, thank you very much. Good to meet both
Thank you.
of you. And thank you for listening to this morning's Community Voice program. It is now 9 o'clock. Have a great weekend.